most Americans can't name the three branches of government, but somehow we all have a PhD in one very specific argument. We're a democracy, says one, and we're a republic, says the other. And this fight happens everywhere. Facebook, Thanksgiving, comment sections, the DMV, your marriage. And every time it happens, both sides walk away confident that the other person is an idiot, which is convenient because while we're arguing about labels, we're not talking about what actually matters: power, trust, and whether the system still works for the people living in it. So today, we're going to settle it. Not with vibes, not with slogans, with clarity. Because here's the real answer. One side is technically right, and the other side is functionally right. And the fact that we can't hold both truths at the same time is part of why we're easy to divide. So let's take this quick civics lesson here. When people say democracy, they usually mean regular people have a say in who runs the place. Voting, elections, and the majority preference matters. When people say republic, they usually mean there are rules that even majorities can't break: a constitution, rights, checks and balances, limits on power. And if you want the cleanest way to remember it, democracy answers who decides, republic answers what are they allowed to decide. That's it. That's the whole thing. So what's the United States? We're a democratic republic, meaning we choose leaders through democratic mechanisms, but we constrain what government can do through Republican guardrails. Easy. And yes, I know someone is already typing, actually, we're a constitutional republic. Relax, we will get there. But this argument isn't really about definitions. It's about something deeper. And here's the part that nobody says out loud. People don't choose democracy or republic because they're passionate about political science. They choose them because they're afraid. Not always consciously, but functionally. Because both terms are usually shorthand for my side should have power and your side should not. And the reason that's so corrosive is that it turns disagreement into illegitimacy. It's no longer I disagree with your policy. It becomes your voice shouldn't count, your vote is dangerous, your victory is invalid, and the loss is proof that the system is broken. And once you get there, it's not a democracy or republic territory. You're in we don't trust each other territory, which is not ideal. So let's look at why each side clings to their label. When someone insists we're a democracy, they're often really saying the system should reflect the will of the majority. They're pointing to moments where the majority wants something and the system doesn't deliver it quickly. Maybe it's a policy, maybe it's reform, and maybe it's a candidate who got more votes but didn't win. And the emotional core underneath that is usually my participation does not feel powerful enough, or the system is rigged against what most people want. And look, sometimes that complaint is legitimate because democracy is a moral argument as much as a mechanical one. It's the claim that a government is more legitimate when more people have a meaningful voice. That's the heart of it. That's why it resonates. But democracy has a problem, a big one. Democracy by itself can become whatever the majority wants and whatever the majority gets. And historically, that has not always been great. Because majorities are not automatically wise, they're not automatically fair, and they're definitely not automatically calm. Which brings us to the other slogan. When someone insists we're a republic, what they're often really saying is majorities can be dangerous. They're worried about emotional swings, mob rule, culture shifts, fear-driven laws. They're saying even if most people want something, that doesn't make it right. And again, this concern is also legitimate because the point of rights is that they don't disappear when your side loses. A republic at its best protects people from political hysteria, temporary anger, overreach, and crowds deciding someone else's freedom is optional. That's the sales pitch. But the republic has a problem too, and it's also a big one. If you lean too hard into republic as a shield against majority will, you can end up with a system that's protected but not responsive, a system that's stable but not accountable, or a system that's lawful but not representative. And then people stop believing it belongs to them. Because here's the ugly truth. A republic without democratic legitimacy doesn't stay noble. It drifts towards a different kind of rule. Rule by the connected, rule by the insulated, rule by the people who know how to pull the levers. In other words, a republic without democracy can turn into an oligarchy wearing a suit. So if democracy's failure mode is mob rule, the republic's failure mode is rule by a protected few. And that's why the founders built a blend. Democratic input, Republican restraint. Not because they were geniuses or have perfect foresight, but because they were suspicious of everyone, including you, including me, and especially the guy in the comment section right now saying, do your research. Now let's get to the actual point of this episode. Why does this republic versus democracy thing drive people apart so effectively? Because it's not a debate about structure. It's a debate about threat. When people say democracy, they're often imagining a threat like a minority is blocking progress and forcing its values on the majority. When people say republic, they're often imagining a threat like a majority will eventually come for my rights, my values, my way of life. So both sides are not arguing a definition, they're arguing a fear scenario. And the moment politics becomes fear management, people stop thinking in terms of we, and they start thinking in terms of survival. And when that happens, compromise feels like surrender. That is the engine of polarization. So here's where divided by design lives. Because the republic versus democracy argument isn't extremely useful, it's to certain people. And why? Because it allows power to reframe any outcome they don't like. If you lose an election or policy fight, you can claim, this is tyranny of the majority. If you win but face institutional limits, you can claim, this is minority rule. And notice how both claims do something very specific. They make the other side's success feel illegitimate. Not just wrong, but illegitimate. And once you convince people that the system is illegitimate when they lose, you're not creating anger, you're creating permission. Permission to reject outcomes, permission to deny results, permission to treat fellow citizens like enemies. And then conveniently, you don't have to offer better ideas. You just have to keep the fight alive. Because attention is power, rage is fuel, and confusion is profitable. So let's end this cleanly. If someone says we're a democracy, the correct response is yes, in how we choose our leaders and express popular consent. If someone says we're a republic, the correct answer is yes, in how we constrain power and protect rights from majority overreach. And if someone says one of these to win an argument, here's the response that actually matters. Which half are you using to justify taking power, and which half are you ignoring to protect it? Because that's usually what's happening. If you scream democracy to imply the majority can do anything it wants, you're arguing against the point of rights. If you scream republic to dismiss popular will entirely, you're arguing against legitimacy itself. And both of those are how systems break. Not overnight, but eventually. So here's the line I want you to remember. Democracy provides legitimacy. The republic provides restraint. We need both. And if you're using one to silence the other, you're not defending America. You're defending your team. The republic versus democracy argument isn't really about civics. It's about trust. And the more we fight about labels, the less we talk about whether the system is delivering what people actually need. Fair representation, protected rights, accountable leadership, and a country where losing an election doesn't feel like losing your future. Because if we can't agree on we're on the same side as a country, then what do we even call it? And yes, I'm aware that someone in the comments are already saying we're a constitutional republic, not a democracy. And to that person, I say, you're half right, and you're missing the entire point.